We've heard a lot about the end of the mining boom here in Australia, and it's interesting from my perspective that the comparatives in the global market are not quite as negative and despairing as we have here. And this has come out particularly in the Fraser Institute's annual report. Fraser Institute is based out of Canada, and they do a perceptions index on legislation around the world, a comparative. And one of the shocking reports from my perspective rated Australia's provinces and states significantly lower than places in Africa. So for example, here in Queensland, the perception index puts Queensland below Botswana and Namibia. In New South Wales, the perception index puts the New South Wales legislation underneath Burkina Faso, which is in the middle of a coup, and underneath Myanmar, which hasn't passed its new mining law. So we have a problem, I think, on perceptions with respect to legislation and the attractiveness of doing deals in Australia. The reason why I mention this is when we talk about a mining boom, we really might be talking about something slightly different, which is that Australia is losing its leadership from a legislative perspective internationally for projects to go elsewhere, to South America, to Africa, to other parts of Asia. And from my perspective at least, if you look at the supply-demand curve globally, we have not been seeing this volatility that we're seeing right now in terms of commodity pricing. So the core demand hasn't changed dramatically. It has changed, but not to the point where we're seeing 60–70% of commodity demand collapsing. But we are seeing 60–70%, even more, collapse in the price of iron ore, thermal coal, met coal, and the like. So I think it's important here in Australia that we look more closely at how the global community is viewing us and choosing perhaps to invest elsewhere rather than here at home.
Robert, what's your view on appropriate legislative policy at both federal and state levels in Australia?
Well, we've seen a lot in the last few years about the MRT and the carbon tax and the reversal of both policies, which created a lot of concern in the mining sector. So the first thing I would say is we need consistency. We need a clear, unified approach and a government at the federal level and at each of the state levels which clearly supports one policy and advocates that internationally, that Australia is open for business, that we are effective and aggressive in attracting business while still protecting the environment and protecting people. There's no reason for those issues to be in competition with each other. We really can continue our leadership, but it requires, I think, a rethink about how we are regulating our industry, the resources industry in Australia at the moment.
Well, it'd be nice if politicians listen. Robert, thanks so much for your insights.
Thank you very much.